Hello, everyone. My name is Lance Glinn, and my project is titled Never Forget How Social Media Haunts Professional Athletes. And I will mainly be focusing on how decade old posts or around decade old posts come back and affect professional athletes in the present day. So, who am I? Well, first and foremost, I am a Sirius XM sports producer. I work at Sirius XM in New York City. I've been there for about a year and a half now, and I currently work with Mad Dog Sports Radio. I think through my work, I have been able to dissect and scrutinize athletes' use of social media. We talk about it all the time on air. We even question athletes when they come in for interviews about specific aspects of their social media if we feel the need to. So I feel like my experience working in sports and being able to really see and understand why an athlete kind of posted something on Twitter, or posted something on Facebook or Instagram, really helps me in this project. Also, as a user of social media, such as Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, I'm aware of the positive and negative affordances that the technology offers. I think we all are really, considering I believe most of us probably are on one site or the other or multiple. We are aware of how much of an advantage social media can be, but also how much of a burden social media can be. And of course, I'm sure we all work to make sure that we don't feel the effects of what a burden it could be. We only really use the advantages to talk to our friends, to get out our opinion, and to do so in obviously a respectful way. I'm also a sports fan, and I am loyal to teams in various sports and support the players on my favorite teams. I'm a Yankees fan, a Giants fan, a Devils fan. I went to Rutgers for my undergraduate, so I love Rutgers sports as well. And I, of course, support the players that are on these teams. And I would hate to see a player that I support obviously put out a disrespectful or damaging social media tweet. Why I chose this topic. So, a large portion of today's athletes and ones that are rising in the amateur ranks still, they grew up in this social media generation. More than ever before, athletes find that social media acts as a way for them to express themselves without being censored by the teams. And I think that's big for athletes because a lot of the times, be it in press conferences or when they're being interviewed by media, they feel a little bit constrained by the team because they need to say the right thing. They can't really say what's on their mind. They always need to say that, oh, this team played well. We could have done this better, this and that. But social media gives them an opportunity and an avenue, really, to express their thoughts how they want to without being controlled by the team. And they can also express their thoughts on other topics. With the constant use of social media for expression, mistakes arise and damage could be done. I think we've all seen countless examples, be it athletes, big businesses, celebrities using social media the wrong way, mistakes happening, and then ultimately us having a poor perception of what that celebrity said or what that business did, and then a poor perception of the business overall. Unfortunately, while we're aware of the dangers of social media in the present day, in its infancy, back in the early to mid 2000s, these dangers were not really thought of. I don't believe many people believed that tweets or Facebook posts or Instagram posts would eventually reappear. I think a lot of people were under the impression that they, would eventually be deleted or that no one would be able to find them. But we have seen time and time again in the present day that they're, in fact, very easy to find. And if you look to the right of the screen, you'll see two examples of somewhat offensive tweets and kind of stupid tweets by two players. One is Rashard Mendenhall at the top. He used to be a running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He tweeted, of course, we'll never know what really happened. I just have a hard time believing a plane could take a skyscraper down demolition style. And of course, that is in reference to 9/11. And Cardell Jones, a former quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Why should we have to go to class if we came here to play football? We ain't come to play school. Classes are pointless. So two examples of when social media was used in the wrong way and mistakes were made by both these athletes. The internet never forgets, and I think that is kind of the grand scope of this project as a whole. We need to understand that if we post something, the internet will always have it. As mentioned, when social media platforms were in their infancy, nobody was worried about tweets or posts laying dormant for years. They think they post it once, whoever sees it then is whoever sees it, and then kind of disappears. But that's just not the case, and we see that today. Beginning in 2015, with NBA player Larry Nance, posts began to resurface, showing professional athletes saying homophobic, racist, derogatory, and of course intolerable things. It started with Larry Nance in 2015 when he posted, or when a post reappeared from years before of him tweeting that Kobe Bryant was a racist, a rapist. Of course, Larry Nance was drafted to the Lakers, who employed the person he tweeted about, Kobe Bryant. Athletes like Josh Hader, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Larry Nance, as I mentioned before, Dante DiVincenzo, and others have had posts reappear, damaging their reputation. While, of course, they've apologized for the almost decade-old tweets, the damage has already been done, and because they were revealed, there was already a negative perception now around these players, regardless of how often they apologized or how many times they apologized. The posts, they never disappeared, and years later came back to burden these athletes. We talked about it before. In its infancy, maybe it wasn't a thought, but now we know, or at least I assume most of us know, that what we say on the internet could really always be found again. It could always be searched, and it could always reappear. And as you see to the right, two players I mentioned, Josh Allen and Josh Hader, I'm going to post some of their tweets that they made years ago. You see 2012 for Josh Hader, 2013 for Josh Allen, both when they were in their teens and in high school, that ultimately came back and damaged their perception. Josh Allen, on that popular Ask FM forum that was, popular for maybe about a year or two. Why are you so white? He was asked, and he tweeted, "If it ain't white, it ain't right." And of course, Josh Hader, another racist tweet as well. He tweeted, "White power, LOL." So some of the findings that I found while doing this research, there are a couple of common themes surrounding all the posts that the athletes made. The first one, and I think the most common one, was the time the tweet was revealed. Each athlete had their post revealed after reaching a high point in their careers. You look at Josh Allen, for example. He was getting ready to prepare for the NFL draft, and he was assumed to be a top 10 pick. Josh Hader had just reached the Major League Baseball All-Star game. I mentioned Larry Nance before. His post was just revealed right after he was drafted in the first round of the NBA draft. You had a guy like Kyler Murray, who won the Heisman Trophy, and that night his tweets were revealed. So you see a common thread that once a athlete reaches a high point in their careers and reaches, you can argue the pinnacle of their career, that's when these tweets and posts start to be revealed. You look at the pro fan reaction. So fans that are for the player or root for the player who has run into this issue. For them, it's forgive and forget. Fans of the team and the player, they were more likely to easily forgive the player and quickly forget the mistake, because ultimately in the back of a fan's mind, while I'm sure they sense the trouble of the tweet, they just want whoever is on their team that is going to perform. So if you have a player like Josh Hader, who was in the All-Star game, he was someone who was producing and performing for the Milwaukee Brewers at a record pace. So fans, because they wanted him to keep performing, were going to forgive and forget very easily so that they didn't damage his psyche, they didn't damage, his confidence, and they didn't add to the burden that was on him. Opposing fan reactions, on the other hand, fans who are against the athletes, they showered that athlete with jeers, boos, of course disdain, and they showed their unwillingness to so easily forgive. Part of that is because fans see the tweets, are offended, and don't believe that athlete should be, let off so easily. The second part of that is that those opposing fans want to get into the head of the athlete, so they really take any means necessary to do so. And when an opportunity to get into the head of an athlete with a revealing tweet is right there in the open, fans are going to jump to the opportunity. Loss of trust, and of course the need to regain that trust. Team executives and players challenge the athlete to gain back their trust. Look, yes, the mistake happened years ago, and I'm sure, we are all more mature than when we were in high school, but peers were still offended and felt disrespected. You look at a tweet like Josh Hader's, for example. He tweeted white power. There are multiple African-American players, Hispanic players, minority players, really, on the Milwaukee Brewers and around the league. So those players, while they may have been friends with Josh Hader before, saw these tweets, felt disrespected, and now Hader needed to regain their trust and regain their respect. How the research was performed, it is important, I believed, to directly research the posts made by these different athletes and the reactions afterward. That includes reading comments, not only on the posts that were made, but on current posts to see how the long-term reaction of the fans was. And through different sports websites, social media platforms, as I said before, and the different press releases put out by the different parties, I was able to understand the reaction by each group, be it an agent, a player, a team, a league releasing these press releases. I was able to kind of tell how they reacted to the incident at hand. And, you had sources such as Yahoo Sports, USA Today, Washington Post, SB Nation, and others allowed me to view quotes from each group affected and better understand how they were feeling. I think relating it back to the overall course, look, athletes are a brand. They represent their own brand as well as the brand they play for, which is the team, of course, and the brand they are underneath, which is the league. Disrespectful posts can negatively affect the reputation of all three brands and can, of course, result in a loss of revenue, which is really the worst case scenario for all three. Athletes often sell their own merchandise. They perform in commercials and advertisements, and they're ambassadors for different products. Having disrespectful tweets revealed could result in, advertisers terminating the contract with the athletes, fans protesting the merchandise and perhaps the games, and an overall loss of support. And again, that's kind of the worst case scenario if you're a team or a league, because you thrive off of making money like any business. And if you have people protesting a specific player, protesting a specific team, merchandise, that's just losing money. Now, how could this be solved? Athletes, it's important that they police themselves and think before posting. Social media can be an advantage or a great burden. If an athlete thinks before posting and finds something maybe offensive, just don't post it. Team policies are being put in place. They're beginning to implement these social media policies to help dictate what an athlete, be it amateur or professional, in college or in Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA, or NHL, they're dictating what an athlete can post. And as well when an athlete can post. And the simple thing is don't post. Just simply do not do it. There's nothing offensive that can be posted if nothing is posted at all. Now to the conclusion, we have not yet reached the end of this epidemic. Young professional athletes are still at an age where they were old enough to use social media when it started. So athletes were still in high school or still in middle school or, even coherent enough to a point when social media started to be able to use it. So when social media did start, they were unaware of the long-lasting effects, and I'm sure we're going to find over the next couple of years more and more tweets being revealed from the mid-2000s to the early 2010s from when athletes were back in high school. It's important for professional athletes and really every individual to scrub their social media platforms and remove anything offensive. I think that's the key. If you are someone who's aspiring to be a professional athlete, it's so easy to find these tweets. You need to make sure that you get rid of them. First off, you obviously hope that you didn't post anything, and you shouldn't have posted anything, but if you did, you get rid of them as soon as you can. When something like this happens, usually when an athlete reaches a high point, how they react to the incident will determine the long-term perception of them. If you're smug and arrogant and say, well, I just did this because I was in high school, people are going to have a negative perception towards you. You need to be apologetic. Overall, eliminating this issue is difficult, but it's not impossible, and the rewards of its disappearance are certainly beneficial. I want to thank you all for watching my presentation, and I thank you for your time.